It all started in a Manhattan loft, packed wall to wall with 20 hopeful models, all waiting for a once-in-a-lifetime callback for Aurora, a mysterious new fashion house promising global stardom. The air was thick with ambition, envy, and hairspray. The narrator says, one of the girls, tall, striking, and quiet, catches everyone's attention. Her name is not mentioned yet, but whispers start. She's new, doesn't speak much, and yet, somehow, the casting directors can't keep their eyes off her. The narrator says, another model, a fiery brunette wearing a sharp red coat, leans over and whispers to the girl beside her. This one's trouble, says the fiery brunette. I saw her at the Oslo shoot. Rumor was she replaced the lead model last minute after the lead mysteriously dropped out. The narrator says, the other model, a bubbly blonde with nervous eyes, shrugs. Replaced her? You mean she got sick? The fiery one scoffs. Sick with fear, maybe. Models don't vanish like that unless someone pushes them out. The narrator says, the casting room doors open, and a sharply dressed woman with icy eyes steps out. Aurora's head booker. She says, Ava, Lana, Celine, Nadia, follow me. The narrator says, 4 names, 4 chosen. Among them, the new girl, the fiery brunette Ava, glares. She wasn't picked. Neither was the nervous blonde. Ava mutters, that's it. I'm calling Bryce. The narrator says Bryce is her agent and her sometimes lover. He promised her a guaranteed spot, but clearly someone pulled strings harder. The narrator says, in the dim-lit casting room, the 4 selected models are handed NDAs. Thick ones. The icy-eyed booker says, sign. This is no ordinary job. Aurora values privacy. If you're not ready, walk now. No one leaves. The narrator says, after signing, the models are ushered into a smaller room. There, standing with his arms crossed and dark sunglasses on, is Anton Vorel, the elusive designer behind Aurora. Whispers claimed he died 5 years ago in Paris. Others said he had a breakdown, but here he was, alive. He walks slowly, inspecting each model, saying nothing. Then he stops in front of the new girl. He takes off his sunglasses and studies her face. You're not from my agency, he says. The narrator says, she doesn't flinch. No, she replies, but I belong here. Anton smirks. We'll see. The narrator says, back in the waiting room, Ava paces, steaming. She dials Bryce. You said I was a lock, she hisses. Bryce replies, relax. You're still on the short list. But listen, Anton requested someone new, some no name, off the books. Ava snaps. So you're just going to let this girl walk in and steal my show? Bryce pauses. There's talk that she's not just a model, she's connected. politically. Ava narrows her eyes. I'll find out who she is, she says, and I'll make damn sure she doesn't walk that runway. The narrator says, meanwhile, the four chosen are led to a private suite at the Manhattan Grand Hotel. Their phones are taken. They're told the shoot begins at dawn. Nadia, a French model with a sharp accent, whispers to the new girl, "They're being too careful. This isn't just fashion. It's something else." Celine, a seasoned model, adds, "Aurora always had secrets. Remember the Tokyo campaign? 2 models disappeared before the launch." The new girl replies softly, "Sometimes secrets are necessary to keep people safe." Nadia stares at her. That sounds like something someone guilty would say. The narrator says, that night, in the hotel's security office, a staffer watches camera footage. He zooms in on the new girl entering the hotel suite. His jaw tightens. He dials a number. "She's here," he whispers. "It's her. I thought she was off-grid." A voice on the other end replies, "Do not engage. Keep recording." The narrator says, on the top floor, Anton Vorel paces inside his penthouse. He pours himself a drink, staring at a tabloid photo taped to the wall, one of his old models, Gabriella. The headline reads, "Model falls from Paris balcony, accident or murder." He tears it down. "I told you never to bring her back," he mutters. A voice from the shadows says, "She wasn't my choice." Anton spins around. "Then whose was it?" The voice replies, "She picked herself." The sun rose over Manhattan, but inside the Grand Hotel's top-floor suite, light barely crept through the blackout curtains. The 4 chosen models stirred awake, groggy, their phones still missing, their freedom quietly revoked. The narrator says, the new girl sat by the window, wide awake. She hadn't slept. She was used to surveillance, used to people digging into her past. What they didn't know is that she had already buried her past, and anyone who tried to dig it up might not survive. Nadia stretched and yawned. "This is creepy," she muttered. "Locked windows, no clocks, no phones. And did you hear someone pacing the hallway at 3 a.m.? Celine sat up on the edge of her bed, brushing her platinum hair. "I heard something," she said. "Sounded like heels. Or boots. Someone stopped outside our door for a long time." The narrator says, Lana, the quietest of the group, rubbed her eyes. Maybe it was Anton. He's known to do late-night checks. The new girl said nothing. The narrator says, downstairs, Ava, the red-coated, rejected model, was pacing outside the security office. She'd bribed the desk clerk to get her access to the camera feeds. What she found was far more than she bargained for. She watched footage of the hallway on the private suite floor. At 2:52 a.m., a figure in a hood appeared. Not a staffer, not a model. The person placed a small device under the door of the suite, then vanished. Ava whispered, "What the hell was that?" The clerk leaned in. "Maybe a mic or a gas emitter. This ain't standard hotel behavior." Ava's eyes narrowed. "She's dangerous," she muttered. "I knew it." The narrator says, upstairs, the models were escorted by a silent woman in black down to the private studio beneath the hotel, a sterile, icy white room with no windows. Cameras were already rolling. Anton stood at the center. He said, "Today is a test, not of beauty, but of resilience." He looked at each model, then focused on the new girl. "You will each walk the light corridor, one by one. You'll be observed, not judged, just understood." Nadia scoffed. "What is this, a cult casting?" Anton replied, "Art requires sacrifice." The narrator says, one by one, the models walked the corridor, a long tunnel lit by harsh white lights. But what they saw inside wasn't just walls. Lana emerged, pale and shaking. "There were photos," she said, "of me, from childhood. Some I've never seen, and audio, someone's been watching me for years." Celine nodded, rattled. "I heard my mother's voice. She died when I was 12. Nadia pushed past them, furious. "This is manipulation," she snapped. "I'm done." She turned to leave, only to find the door locked. Anton said calmly, "You agreed to the rules." The new girl stepped forward. "I'll go next." The narrator says, inside the corridor, it was silent at first, but then shadows flickered on the walls. News clips, surveillance footage, a flickering photo of a woman falling from a balcony. Gabriella. The narrator says, a voice echoed in the tunnel. "You let her fall, you watched, and then you vanished." The new girl didn't flinch. She knew what she was doing, she whispered. She was unraveling. She was going to ruin us all. The voice grew louder. "You pushed her." The girl smiled. "No, I just didn't stop her." The narrator says, in the control room, Anton watched in disbelief. She remembers everything. The voice beside him, same shadowy one from chapter 1, said, "I told you she didn't forget." Anton's face darkened. She wasn't supposed to come back. She was blacklisted. The voice replied, "She's not just back. She's here to finish what she started." The narrator says, meanwhile, Ava burst into Bryce's office, tossing a stack of photos onto his desk. Still frames from the corridor feed. "She's dangerous," she snapped, "and I think she was involved in Gabriella's death." Bryce raised an eyebrow. "So, models fall all the time. Fashion is war." Ava shook her head. "She's not here for a career. She's here for revenge." Bryce leaned forward. "And you want in?" Ava paused, then nodded. "I want her out. I want the Aurora campaign, and I want her erased." Bryce smirked. "Then let's start digging." The narrator says, Back in the studio, the models returned to their suite. No one spoke. Everyone was shaken except the new girl. That night, as the others slept, she snuck out of the suite through a hidden service door only she seemed to know about. She made her way to Anton's private penthouse, opened the door with a card she should not have had, and found him alone, drinking. He looked up. "I should have stopped you," he muttered. She replied, "You couldn't." Anton glared. She didn't deserve to die. The new girl leaned in. She deserved the truth, but she couldn't handle it. Just like you won't handle what I'm about to reveal. Anton whispered, "What are you planning?" She smiled. "Runway week is tomorrow. I'm going to let the whole world watch." The narrator says, Fashion Week in New York. The grand ballroom was transformed into a shimmering cathedral of glass and mirrors. Industry elites filled the seats, cameras perched like vultures. The spotlight was ready for Aurora's resurrection, and the faces that would define it. Backstage, chaos churned beneath the calm surface. Makeup artists buzzed. Stylists screamed over missing gowns. But the models, they stood silently, pale, uncertain, all except one. The new girl stared into her vanity mirror, smudging a red line across her cheek. "She's not coming back, is she?" asked Lana quietly. The new girl didn't respond. Nadia spoke from the corner. "Did you see Anton today?" Celine shook her head. "No, and Bryce has been on the phone nonstop. Something's off." The new girl finally turned around. "You're right," she said. "Everything's off, including the show." The narrator says, in the main hall, Ava walked in like a star reborn, hair swept back, wearing a crimson jumpsuit that shimmered like fire. She'd clawed her way into the final lineup. Bryce had made good on his promise, or so she thought. He greeted her by the champagne table. "You look ready," he said. "I was born ready," Ava replied. He leaned in. "Good, because what happens next? You'll want front row seats." The narrator says Anton hadn't been seen since the night before, but in the control booth, a young AV tech found a small flash drive taped under the main switchboard. It was labeled only Showtime. He plugged it in, expecting a walkthrough of lighting cues. Instead, he found video files, dozens, each one labeled with a model's name, and blackmail footage, surveillance, private conversations, medical records, secrets no one was supposed to know. He froze. The final file was titled Gabriella Fall. He clicked. A video loaded. Grainy rooftop footage. Anton screaming. Gabriella crying. The camera focused on the ledge. Someone else stepped forward. Not Anton, not Gabriella. It was the new girl. The voice on the video. "You said you'd keep the secret." Gabriella replied, "You lied. I'm going to tell everyone what this is." Then came the push. Quick, silent, final. The file ended with static. The tech's hands shook. He turned to call someone, anyone, but the feed suddenly cut out. The flash drive wiped itself. The narrator says, backstage, the models were lining up. A handler handed the new girl her final piece, a dress of black silk with mirrored glass stitched into its seams. "You're the closer," he said. She smiled faintly. "How fitting." The narrator says, Bryce stepped onto the stage to address the crowd before the runway began. The cameras were live. Influencers streamed every second. He raised a glass to the rebirth of Aurora and to the women who wear the fire. Applause roared, but then the lights flickered. The music cut. A loud buzz echoed through the room. The screens behind Bryce, meant to show live footage of the walk, suddenly shifted. A voice came through the speakers. "You all came for a show. Here's the real one." The audience laughed at first, until the first video played. The narrator says, "It was Gabriella in tears, speaking to the camera in a hotel room. They promised fame. They offered money. But it was control, surveillance, blackmail. When I found out what Anton and Bryce were really doing, they told me I'd never walk again. I wasn't going to let them win." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then came footage of the runway corridor, Lana screaming, Celine sobbing, Nadia shouting at someone off camera. The industry's golden image began to fracture live on stage. Bryce tried to cut the mic, but his controls were frozen. Anton was nowhere to be found. Then came the final clip, the rooftop, Gabriella's last moments. The push, the face, the new girl. The narrator says, screams, confusion. Someone fainted in the front row. Models ran off stage. Bryce stood frozen as the spotlight suddenly swiveled, not onto the runway, but toward the back of the stage. There she stood, the new girl, dressed in black shards, reflecting the horror she'd just revealed. She stepped forward. "You all covered it up," she said. "Anton, Bryce, even Ava. You knew what happened. You just buried it because you liked what she gave you." She turned to the cameras. "Well, now you can't bury it, because Gabriella isn't just a ghost. She's justice." Security began to rush the stage, but not toward her, toward Bryce. And then Anton emerged, bloodied, disoriented, from beneath the stage. "I was locked in the studio," he shouted. She drugged me." But it was too late. The audience had seen what mattered. The narrator says, in the aftermath, Bryce was arrested. Ava fled the country. Anton vanished into scandal. His empire dissolved overnight. The modeling industry shook, unsure of who was left to trust. And the new girl, she disappeared, never walked again, never posted, never spoke. But sometimes, on underground streams, her footage surfaces, a shadow in the wings of fashion shows, a ghost behind the lights. Some say she vanished out of guilt. Others say she's still watching, waiting, because the runway never forgets, and neither does she.